What's up?
Not too much, not too much.
How's the weather over there?
It's not too bad. It's we snowed the other day, but now it's like pretty warm out. It's melting pretty quick, so
Nice.
yeah, so not too bad. How about over there?
Oh, it's gray, man. It ain't raining, but it's gray, you know, typical Bay Area weather.
Yeah, no shit, right?
Well, I guess this is unofficially episode number 2.
Oh, cool.
Well, let's start off, like, where did you grow up, and how did you first get into punk rock?
I grew up in like a suburb of Boston, and let me see. Yeah, I grew up like a suburb of Boston, about like 40 minutes from the city. So I got into punk just from kind of like a kid that lived up the street from me was into like Slapshot, Circle Jerks, Gnostic Front, stuff like that. And I was more at the time into like Slayer, Metallica, Motorhead, you know, stuff like that. And this was like before the internet, so this was like, you know, 92, 93. So it wasn't as accessible. So I kind of heard a few bands, you know, like some records from him. And then through that I found like Danzig, and then, you know, then the Misfits, and kind of started looking into stuff on my own and founded my own band, got more into like the British stuff. Whereas that kid wasn't into the British stuff, he was more just into US. So that's how I got into it. And then I just started from there looking for, you know, any local shows, you know, looking for flyers of bands that sounded like they were punk or hardcore, and, you know, trying to check that stuff out.
Nice. What was the first show you went to? Do you remember?
Let me think. First punk show I went to, I think was it's like a local show with bands like the August Spies and Toxic Narcotic. I'm trying to think. That was probably like one of my early shows. I don't remember like the exact first show I went to. That probably would have been like, you know, like 90, probably 92, 93. Then I remember seeing like Blank 77 a couple of years after that. That was like one of the first like kind of memorable ones. You know, when bands started, like I started finding out where, you know, touring bands were playing. I remember seeing like Whorehouse of Representatives, who are actually, I think they're from Seattle, or maybe Minneapolis. I think Seattle though. And, you know, just bands like that. And then from there, just, you know, bands like the Casualties, you know, when he started the Unseen, me and Trip, we started, you know, just kind of getting in contact with other bands from other cities, you know, to trade shows and stuff like that. That's when met bands like, you know, like the Casualties, Nosferatu, Anti-Flag, you know, like bands that were kind of around like the East Coast that were, you know, looking to play. Like Anti-Flag would come to Boston. We'd go see them, you know, trade info with them, then, you know, then book them here. And then in return, they would book us in Pittsburgh. Same with them, you know, we met the guys from Nosferatu, kind of that way too, from going to Pittsburgh, playing with Anti-Flag, and then Casualties. We'd swap shows countless times. You know, I'd book them in Boston, they'd book us up in New York and New Jersey, and just kind of, it was just like kind of all word of mouth and just actually meeting people in person. Whereas now it's more you can message somebody online and you know and hook up that way.
Right. Well, why did you form the band, The Unseen?
Just I don't know, boredom, kind of like I said, from a smaller town outside of Boston, and me and Trip and Scott were still all in the bands, went to school together, and we just, you know, we're looking for something to do, and we're all into the same music, so we just kind of started playing, like just out of like boredom and something to do, really.
Nice. Did you guys take the name from that horror movie?
Yeah, me and Trip, we're in a band before the Unseen called the Experience, and we never did anything. It was practice, in some kid's basement. We never even played a show. That kid was crazy, so we kicked him out, and then me and Trip and that was in the band. His name Paul, there was a guy in the Unseen named Paul too, but this was actually before him. This is another guy, Paul Morey. Me, Trip, and him started the band, and then shortly after we recruited Scott, who also played guitar in Hingham. But right before we had got Scott, we just trying to pick names, going through like old horror books and trying to find something that wasn't used yet. And we just saw that like a movie poster of a movie called The Unseen, and we're like, that's a really cool logo. We can steal the logo, and it's a cool name. You know what I mean? So we just took it, and then like 2 years later, we actually found the movie, because again, this was before the internet, so you couldn't like go online and find the movie and watch it. So a couple of years later, we actually found the movie at a video store and watched it, and we're like, this movie sucks. It's a terrible movie, but whatever, still a cool name. The movie's about like a mentally retarded like dude that's like trapped in a basement that like spies on chicks when they're changing or something like that. It's like it's a terrible movie, but whatever, cool name.
Nice.
So,
well, what kind of like chaos has gone down at Unseen shows over the years?
Trying to think. It's almost like I've been playing so long that it's like it's kind of become the norm. You know what I mean? Like chaos stuff. But I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I've seen seen people like get injured pretty bad. Like we played a show in Texas. This was like on our first real U.S. tour. It was Unseen Violent Society and the Casualties, and I remember some kid like fell off a curb and like his bone just like popped out of his like leg. It was nasty. Ambulance wouldn't take him because he didn't have insurance. So his friend had to like put him in a car and take him to the hospital. Seen like that. Seen some typical fights at shows. Been involved in a couple fights. At our shows,
right.
Just mainly just from being like stressed out and exhausted and like someone giving you shit, you know what I mean? Like, it hasn't happened often, but I remember once in Oregon, actually, we had an incident, where like some kid like pushed me or something like that, so I hit him. And then another time we were playing with the Dropkick Murphys, so some kid was saying something to us, and I jumped off the stage and like smashed him with a microphone. And actually, my buddy Ian was videotaping the show and got the whole thing on film. But it's like that's that shit I'm into. I'm not into like going out and inciting violence or anything like that. It was just more so like I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I've been on tour for a month, and now you're gonna like sit there and heckle me or something like that.
Right.
Something like that now I wouldn't even give a shit. I'd be like, whatever. You don't like me, I don't really give a fuck. But I guess it was just more so being, like I said, mentally and physically exhausted, because, we used to tour all the time in, DIY style, so it would get exhausting.
Right.
But, nothing really like too crazy at the show that I can, like, other than that stuff that I can remember.
But, you think, like, what kind of prejudice did you experience in the Boston area growing up as a punk rocker? You think there was a lot of prejudice against punks?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I never got like really like attacked or anything like that for it. Like I think when like people, I'm 41 now, and so it's like people like my age that were getting into it, say if they were between the age of like 16 and 20 years old. Back at that time, like I said, this would be like between like 89 to like 92, 93. It was like the people before us, like guys in like, Youth Brigade and Agnostic Front and,
right.
Exploited, like, bands like, 10 years older or older than us rather, they would be the ones that were like attacked by construction workers and called faggots and, stuff like that.
Right.
By the time we got there, I mean, it was still a little bit shocking, but the major shock value had kind of worn off. Mm-hmm. So it was, wasn't as crazy, but yeah, it's like you get looked at, people might, call you a freak or whatever, something like that. But, I never experienced like getting like assaulted or like real extreme prejudice because of it.
Right on. I know you're a working class guy. Why is it important for the punks and skins to stay working class?
I don't know. To me, it's just like matter of opinion and just the way I was raised and just kind of the fact that I'm not a lazy person. I grew up like middle class for a while and then through a divorce with my mom and her her ex-husband, which is my stepfather, we went from being like middle to a little bit higher than middle class to being like dirt poor, because once they got divorced, he took off and didn't help her at all with my brothers and sister who were his kids. I wasn't his kid, but they were. So I went from like having it pretty easy up until I was about 16, into like then having to like definitely work on my own. I started working on my own when I was like 13 or 14 anyways, just because I always was the type that wanted my own money, even though, my parents did provide for me. But once he left, it like reality kind of became a little bit more harsh because, seeing like my little brothers and sisters struggle and my mom struggle, being single and having to raise kids, that kind of like made me appreciate, the value of money and working. And, so that's just kind of like my stance on it. It's some people don't want to work. They're lazy. They want to, sit around and leech off like their parents or significant other, like whatever, more power to you if that's what you want to do. But personally, like I'm more into, like I said, like working, bettering myself and trying to help provide for people in my family that need help.
Right. I mean, it's pretty much a prerequisite for being a skinhead, I guess.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, growing up, I know many skinheads that dressed like a skinhead, acted like a skinhead, were in bands, but didn't have jobs. So it's,
smoking crack on the street.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I've known plenty of skinheads that, did tons of drugs, robbed banks, gas stations, went to jail. Yeah. So it's,
I guess that's a prerequisite too.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. Yep. Depending on, certain things.
What's, your top 3 Oi bands?
My top 3 Oi bands. I'd say, let me think, Blitz, definitely. Foreskins. Lower Class Brats, I kind of consider, a punk band, but also an Oi band. They're a great band. You know what I mean? Some people might not say that, but thinking that they're sort of newer, but at this point, I mean, they're not. They've been around 20 years and they put out a lot of great music. So I'd put the Lower Class Brats as far as Oi bands right up with, bands like, even Cockspar, Cockney Rejects, Foreskins, so yeah, I'd say for me, Lower Class Brats, Blitz, and probably Foreskins.
Nice. So do you know what that Dark Buster song was about?
Not exactly. I've known those guys, sort of for years and years and years, and back when the song came out, we'd only met them maybe once or twice. We played a show together, and back then Lenny, the main songwriter, was drinking a lot, and it was never really, like, as far as I understood, never really a serious thing. It was more so just like we kind of joke around about a lot of shit. These guys are funny looking. They're an easy target. People know who they are, so let's make fun of them. And that's kind of how I never didn't know about the song until a while after they released it, and a couple people started mentioning it to me, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And then Lenny actually came to one of our shows and was like, hey, I just want you to know that song's a joke. I hope you understand that. And he came up, like, bought merch at our show and was like, I just want you to know it's not serious. It was a joke. And I was like, you know, at the time younger and touring and mentally and physically exhausted from touring. So I was like, all right, whatever, but it's still kind of annoying because I hear people, like, asking me about it all the time. It's like, I don't need to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? It's like, so, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, the way that Lenny was at the time. And I remember someone saying to me, don't be offended. He was going to write he either was going to or wrote a song called Ken Casey's Head is as Big as a Mountain, like ... No, it really is, or something stupid like that. Like, you know, saying that, like, you know, like Ken from the Dropkick Murphys has a huge head or something like that, because he does, I guess, maybe have a big head. So it's like, and he was, you know, loved the Dropkick Murphys and stuff like that. So it's, I don't think it was really like a total personal, like, attack. More so just kind of a way to, like, you know, like, make people laugh or whatever. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I didn't really appreciate it, but at the same time, I wasn't really that offended about it. And, like, you know, since then, it's like, I have no problem with him. He has no problem with me. You know, we're friends at this point. So that's basically the story on that. There's no huge drama really around it.
You got any good stories about the Rat?
It was just a great place. Like, when I got into punk, like the main place we went, that was the first real venue. I think we played, we were trying to get out, you know, we started playing and would play like VFW halls and, you know, like stuff like that. And, we're trying to get shows. And then eventually one day, we got a call from a guy working at the Rat, and he said, guys keep wanting to play, right? Like, yep. He's like, all right. It was like a Friday. He's like, Sunday, you guys are playing. Maclads can't get into the country, so it's going to be like you guys, the Bruisers, and like one or two other bands. And we're like, awesome. And, you know, then we get off the phone. Like, I get off the phone with them or whatever, and me and Trevor look at each other like, all right, so we're going to play with the Bruisers to a bunch of skinheads who are going to be not stoked because the Maclads aren't here, and instead they're getting us. You know, at the time we were like 16, 17 years old. So, you know what I mean? So it was like, we're like, fuck. And, you know, at the time it was like Punks and Skins got along and everything, but that was definitely more of an oi show. And we were kind of like an unknown band, and we were younger. You know what I mean? So it was like a little bit intimidating. But it went off fine. You know, it went off good. And, I still got the flyer for that show actually, so it was the first time we got to play with the Bruisers, which was awesome. Right. And after that, you know, other than that, I started booking shows along with like Mark and the Ducky Boys. Started booking shows as well there. I got down there for a show at the Rat, and then from there, Mark's a smart kid, and he started booking as well there. We would do like Sunday shows, and I booked a lot of great bands there. Oxymoron, Brain Dance, Casualties, Blank 77, Discogs, Sama Boot Boys. Then, you know, aside from booking, just played a lot of great shows there. So yeah, it was a really cool venue. It was like right behind Fenway Park where the Red Sox play. It's kind of like an alleyway. It was just a great place for like kids to hang out and not really be bothered. The cops didn't really give you too much trouble because a lot of the cops had like gone to the Rat when they were younger. You know what I mean? Because the place had been there forever. So unless there was like a big fight or something like that, like the cops would come by, they might see kids drinking, they would just be like, hey, get rid of that. So it was a cool venue.
Right
yeah.
On. What's your top 3 horror movies?
Whew, let me think. Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think is definitely going to be in my top 3. It's a great movie. I think one of the reasons I like it so much still to this day is because I actually got to see it in the movie theater. I was only probably about 6 years old. My older brother took me to see it.
Wow.
It had like a limited release, and it was like for the Northeast basically only. I don't think it was shown anywhere when it originally came out except for like Northeast, like kind of out, like, I'm sorry, not Northeast, like the East, like, East Coast, like the northern part of the East Coast. So places like Massachusetts had it, and like New Hampshire and New York. And, so seeing that movie at 6 years old, it's about a guy dressed up as Santa Claus kills people. I was just like, fuck, this is intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it still holds. I think the movie still holds up. If you watch it now, it's a cool story. It's a couple of parts in it are a little far fetched, but for the most part, it's a believable movie. The plot. So that maybe kind of cheesy to say, but Nightmare on Elm Street, just a classic. Again, I got to see that in the movie theaters when I was a kid. I was also young, probably like 8 or 9 when that came out. Let me see. It's another one. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, again, popular but classic.
Nice.
So I'd say those are probably my top 3.
Cool. What's going on with your other band, Tenebrae?
Tenebrae. Nothing really now. I took that name from Italian horror movie. Again, it's hard to find a name that's hasn't been used. So I saw that and I was like, sounds cool. So I stole that, and we did a 7-inch. Then we did a split 12-inch with our friends Panzer Bastard. And it was for the most part a side project, but it was fun. A friend of mine, Dominic, who played guitar for years in FTW For the Worst, we kind of started the band because we just wanted to start a band together. And then Ryan, our buddy Ryan, plays a slap shot. He joined like right at the beginning too, like right after we started playing. And then we just did some shows and did a couple of releases. We never did anything serious. We never toured. Probably only played about 10 shows. Mm-hmm. And then the guitar player moved out to Portland, actually, so we stopped playing.
Nice. Well, what do you think the rowdiest Unseen show was that tops pretty much all of them?
It's tough. We've played so many shows. I remember, what the hell is the name of this festival? I think it was Full Force. The festival in Germany was good. It was just, there was like 6,000 people going crazy for us.
Wow.
Playing in Tokyo. We weren't even a band that long. It was like 99, I think is when it was. But that was awesome. Just something I'll never forget because again, it was, right at the infancy of the internet, and to travel all the way to Japan and do a DIY tour, it was crazy, and just getting all the way to Japan and having all these people know our songs was just like mind blowing, because there was people that went out and actually bought the 7-inches and the records, or traded tapes with their friends to know the music. It wasn't like they were downloading it or watching it on YouTube or something like that. So just that experience of like playing in Tokyo was awesome. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'll never forget. That was, and there was a great crowd. As far as like typically great crowds for us, California, like Pomona and Los Angeles, was always great. I guess one of the rowdiest shows we had was us and Global Threat toured together. Probably I'd say around 07, maybe 06, 07, and we played the Troubadour. It sold out, and they had to turn away like 600 kids, and there was like a riot outside, and it was on the news and everything. We didn't get the show got canceled, so that was like a bunch of young punks, spitting at cops, throwing shit at them, stuff like that, getting arrested. So it actually made LA news. So that night.
Crazy.
So
you excited to play punk rock bowling?
Yeah, it's always a good time. This will be like our third or fourth time doing it. It gets bigger every year. So I'm psyched. So it's a great place to see all the friends that I've made, over the last 20 years, just friends in bands and just friends in general, friends of friends. It's just like a big party, great shows. Everyone's just having a good time. So yeah, stoked about it. It's for me now. It's punk rock was fun when I got into it. I've always loved it, but for a while it became my job because that's what we did for a living. We didn't have jobs. We just toured. So I got kind of burnt out on it for a little bit. And, now it's been 8-9 years since we were a full-time band, maybe even 10. So now I like it again. I look forward to shows. It's as opposed to when we were doing it every day. It's oh, cool. We're going to get to see, Rancid today or, Dropkicks or Exploited, but I've been in tour for 6 months. I don't even fucking care. You know what I mean? It's the fact that sometimes I didn't care that I was going to see the Exploited. It's just as, looking back at it, now it's wow, at one time I didn't give a shit because I was just so burnt out. But, now, like I said, now it's just fun. It's a hobby. It's something we just do for fun. So I don't stress about money. I don't stress about going home and not being able to pay my bills because I'm basically just taking a few days off of work to go have fun now. So I'm, stoked for punk rock bowling for that reason.
Nice. What do you think the worst show you ever played was?
Whew. The worst show we ever played, hands down, I don't even have to think about it, is we played Tom Hamilton, who's the bass player of Aerosmith. We played his son's bar mitzvah, and it was fucking dreadful.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, Trip, our bass player, was teaching for a while. He went to school for that, and he was teaching. I don't even know what grade, whatever grade kids are that when they're gonna have their bar mitzvah. But anyways, he was teaching, and somehow it came up, and he's like, "Hey," and this is when we were still touring a lot. That was our job basically, and we had, I don't know, maybe 3 months off at this point. And he said, "Hey, I teach this kid. It's Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith's son, and we got offered to play his bar mitzvah. It's going to be at the Hard Rock Cafe in Boston. We're going to get paid $3,000 or whatever. And we only have to play it for 45 minutes." And we were like, all right, fuck it, $3,000. We need money. As much as that sucks to say, we need money to live. This is what we do for a job. Maybe we'll get to meet all the dudes in Aerosmith. This will be funny. You know what I mean? And we showed up, and it was just older people, parents of kids, grandparents, whoever would go to a bar mitzvah, and awkward 12, 10 to 14-year-old kids that had no clue who we were or didn't really know about punk rock, just staring at us playing. So it was so uncomfortable, especially being the singer, because you're out front and there's fake claps between songs. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, okay, I made $500 or $600 to do it personally, but it wasn't worth it. It was just looking back on it is funny now. You know what I mean? But at the time, it was just
That's something out of a movie.
It was. It really was. It was Spinal Tap. It was just brutal. It was brutal.
Well, what do you think your most proudest show was then?
Proudest show? Let me think. Probably, it's hard to really pick. I would say, I remember playing, in Pomona, California. No, not Pomona. What was the place? Pomona, a place called the Glass House. Mm-hmm. And, we had played it a couple times, and then we, opening for, other bands, I don't even remember who. I would say probably Youth Brigade, the Casualties maybe. Then we went and, did it on our own, and headlining on our own there, was a proud moment because it's like an 800 capacity place. So knowing that we drew, we were the main reason why these people showed up, it was pretty cool.
Right.
Just knowing that we could go out and sell a place out like that on our own, that was, more than 100 people,
right,
was cool. So, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. What kind of kids usually come to Unseen shows? Is it just punks, or is there hardcore kids, skins?
We've kind of always had a mix, especially kind of like, even like right before we'd signed with Hellcat, like, we put out a couple records with AF Records, and at that point we were drawing mainly punks, some skinheads. Then it got to the point where after our first two records, we'd already played with, I've mentioned these bands already like 3 times in this, what we've been talking, but like we had like played with all like the punk bands, like Casualties, Ozrot, Oxymoron, Brain Dance, like anybody like in the U.S. and even worldwide that was like from our era, like, like mid to late 90s punk, we had played with them everywhere numerous times. So we're like, we knew that we wanted to be a band for a living. We're like, all right, well, we have to try to do something different. So we had started, playing with bands that were punk, but like sort of different, like Bouncing Souls, punk band, but more melodic, especially back then for us to, so we, playing with them to play to their audience. Then we play, started playing with bands with like Voice That's Fire and, stuff like that. Just something that was kind of in the same realm, but different because we were trying to gain new fans. So like anybody that likes this kind of music already knows who we are. We're not going to win anybody else over. They like us or they don't like us. So now it's time to try to expand it and maybe get somebody that, that's not into, our type of punk into punk rock. Maybe we'll be the gateway to help them find other bands. So,
right.
That was something I forget what the main question was at this point, but, what was it?
What kids usually come to Unseen?
Oh yeah, what kind of kids? Yeah, so from that we started kind of drawing more kids. Like some kids that were into psychobilly. We got into us from playing with bands like Tiger Army and Horror Hops and some kids that were more into like hardcore, like got into us because we went out and played with AF and Murphy's Law and Hatebreed. And I remember when we played with Hatebreed, like we did like 2 or 3 tours with them, and I remember at one point I'm like in the bathroom taking a piss, and this dude like with a Slayer shirt, because 90% of Hatebreed's crowd is dudes in Slayer shirts. But I remember like I'm pissing, and this guy looks at me and he's like, "No, usually I think punk bands are faggots, but you guys are pretty cool." And I'm just like, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
It was, playing with other styles of bands is what we had to do to try to get bigger and to broaden like our spectrum and everything. And, like bands like Hatebreed helped us a lot. Like they took us out, I think 2 or 3 times, and Jamie, when he was hosting Headbangers Ball, wore an Unseen shirt a few times, played our videos, a few times. Like he kind of had to say sometimes what would be played, and he could like, kind of recommend things to them. So, that kind of stuff helped us. So that helps, people that weren't necessarily just into like super underground punk, like get into us. So at this point, it seems like we're getting back into more of just like punks and skinheads coming to our shows, because we're not really in the spotlight, kind of. Spotlight. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean? Like for like 5 or 10 years, we were doing really well, and we were touring nonstop. We were in magazines. We were featured on the internet a lot. We made our way into MTV a little bit, and like Fuse TV, or like a couple of those stations that were big at the time. So with doing the Warped Tour, now we're kind of just back to like playing punk shows, and which is either us headlining or us going out with some of our friends and doing a show. So it's more so just kind of back to kind of how it was in the beginning, like full circle,
right?
Kind of type of thing. So
okay. And how's the Boston scene now?
To be honest, I don't know exactly. I don't get out too much. I work a lot. I own a business, so I work 6-7 days a week usually, with the exception of like January and February, the winter months. I don't work too much, but the rest of the year, like I said, I work so much that I'm usually pretty burnt out. So it's like I go to shows when I know about it. It's when it's like a friend's band playing, I'll go out. Like if Sick of It All is coming to town, it's like, cool, I'm going to go see Sick of It All. And then I might get into a new band that I haven't seen because I don't go to that many shows now. Right. So for a while, at least a couple of years ago, there was a really big, like warehouse basement show scene. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't know much about it, but it was cool. I went to a few of the shows. I always felt weird being like, pushing 40 and being at a basement show though with like 17, 18-year-old kids. I just felt like I don't want to be the creepy old guy, you know what I mean? But, yeah. I respected the scene a lot. I just didn't go to many of the shows, but there was like a lot of like super spiky punk kids back around Boston. I was like, shit, I haven't seen this in years. That seems to have kind of died down a little bit. There was a band that was really big, Who Killed Spiky Jacket, and, kids were just loved them for a couple of years. They're still playing now, but they're not doing as good as they were. But that was, like I said, about a year or two ago. The current scene, I'm not really too sure.
All right. Well, what does punk mean to you?
At this point, it's something that I've been involved with for over half of my life. It just, to me, means like basically doing what you want when you want, trying to live like my own way without really needing the help of like government or corporations. I don't know if it sounds like cheesy, but it's the truth. I really don't use banks. I have my own business, so I tend to keep my money out of banks and keep my money to myself, if you know what I mean, and not really have to report all of it, and you know what I mean. So I try to live off the grid, basically, as much as I can in this day and age.
Right.
And so to me, punk's just about, like I said, doing what you want when you want, without being a total piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So.
Right. Well, is there going to be a new album anytime soon?
I don't think so. I'd love to. But the reality is I work a lot. Tripp's got 2 kids. Guitar player, one of our guitar players, Johnny's got a kid. He's got another on the way. He lives up in Maine, which is a couple hours from us. Scott, our guitar player, who's been in the band forever, writes 80% of our music, always has. He lives in Denver now, and he's not really super technical, so it's not like we can really like write, email each other songs. So, so I don't see a new album. I think eventually we'll probably do an EP. I don't think I want to do a full Unseen album, to be completely honest with you. I love the band. It's part of my life, part of my identity. But I can't see writing, 9 or 10 songs lyric-wise that I think are going to be awesome enough to put on an album and play live all the time, because it's like we do an album, I'll write a huge chunk of the lyrics, Trip writes, music, a good chunk of music and some lyrics. So it's just, I think at this point in our lives, like, not to say that we couldn't do something good, but people that are into us already like a certain amount of songs. I don't think they need 12 new ones. You know what I mean? So yeah. I'd be like down to do like some cover songs, for fun, you know what I mean? And a couple new songs and do like a 7-inch, cause like same thing, like I love GBH, but I don't want to listen to a whole new GBH album. I don't know if that's like rude to say, but they're one of my favorite bands, but I'm like, I don't know, 12 new GBH songs doesn't really, I don't think I'm going to dig it. But if I hear like 2 GBH songs that are good, awesome. And now I know they'll play those live, you know, like, so that's kind of like what I see us doing is doing a few songs that are good, you know, weeding out the bad ones, releasing a few of them, and doing like a, you know, like a 2 or 4 song 7-inch.
Right on.
So,
well, do you have any closing words, last words?
No, I appreciate appreciate the interview, the press, you know, and the keeping us relevant. We're doing punk rock bowling this year. We got a show in New York. We haven't played there in about 8 years coming up, a Boston show coming up, and we'll, most likely be doing some stuff, into the fall going into next year. Basically due to a couple of kids being born. We get our drummer and rhythm guitar player having kids this summer, so that's kind of put a damper on a few things that we were going to do. So, we're not broken up. We never did break up. We just decided that we played enough that we don't need to go to Seattle, Texas, Florida, and, you know, 3 times a year anymore. So it's right. Now it's more fun and more an event when we play because people will actually come see us and they're not sick of us. Because for a while we were playing we were like oversaturated everywhere we went. So it was like, I've seen them 3 times this year. Fuck that. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Awesome.
But
well, thanks for doing the interview.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Thank you very much.
And hope to talk to you soon, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, brother. Stay well.
All right. Cheers.